What began as a fun night out for a group of teenage girls quickly turned into a nightmare when a stranger offered them a ride. Naively accepting, they didn't realize this would be their biggest mistake. On the night of August 19th, 1975, about 10:45 p.m., 3 teenage girls were just hanging out in Indianapolis. 11-year-old Sherry Rottler, 13-year-old Candace Smith, and 14-year-old Kathy Rock stopped at a nearby gas station in East Indianapolis to grab some snacks before heading to a nearby amusement park. In fact, after leaving the petrol station, the girls decided to hitchhike to Post Road. As they were strolling down the side of the road, a car soon drove up beside the girls, and the man behind the wheel offered to give them a lift. In the 1970s, hitchhiking wasn't considered an unusual thing, and while it wasn't always the most secure choice, it didn't raise as many concerns as it does now, especially after hearing about cases like these. Thus, the trio agreed to take the stranger's ride and hopped into his 4-door station wagon. The moment he shut the doors, they sensed something was off. The passenger side doors of the car were handleless. Unfortunately, their sixth sense turned out to be true. The man drove past the location where he was supposed to drop the 3. Right away they realized that they had been kidnapped. The man continued to drive past Post Road until he eventually pulled over in Greenfield after a while. With no door handles on either side, Sherry, Candace, and Kathy were practically stuck as they tried to get out of the vehicle. As their survival instincts took over, they even attempted to reach the brake pedal on their own, but the kidnapper hit the accelerator. Following a few more minutes of driving, the man stopped beside a cornfield, pulled out a revolver, and forced the 3 girls out of the vehicle. Then he tied them up, put a gag on them, and went on to assault Sherry. Subsequently, he slashed her throat and stabbed her in the torso 15 times in total. Candace and Kathy witnessed the whole thing, and shortly thereafter the man slit their throats too. He then lifted all of their bodies and threw them in the middle of the cornfield. Afterwards, he got back into his vehicle and took off. Now, this isn't an unsolved case, unlike what you might be assuming. Kathy, Candace, and Sherry all made it through this heinous incident. Not only did the survival instinct take hold while they were being abducted, but later, too, as the girls pretended to be dead, to trick the man to believing that they had been slain as he carried them across the field. Once he was gone, Candace and Kathy managed to break free from their restraints and drag themselves to the side of the road. Whilst bleeding heavily, they still were able to stop a passing car. The 3 guys from the car stopped to help the girls, taking them to a nearby motel from where they could notify the authorities. Officials hurried to the field and rescued Sherry. She was alive but very weak. The 3 girls were taken to the hospital right away. The fact that all 3 of the girls had survived an incident like this astounded the authorities and medical professionals. Despite having significant slashes on their throats, neither Candace nor Kathy was in grave danger. But Sherry, who had been stabbed multiple times, was admitted to the hospital in serious condition. Kathy and Candace cooperated with the authorities to identify the assailant. The man was so sure of the girls being dead that he made no effort to hide himself from them, and therefore the girls were able to provide a lot of information to the police about him and his vehicle. The vehicle was either white or light blue, as the darkness around 10 p.m. made it hard to distinguish. It was a 4-door station wagon from the late 1960s that had rust around the fenders. The girls stated that the man appeared to be middle-aged, with flabby skin on his face. He likewise had short hair, slightly curled at the tips, reddish-brown, that had started turning gray. With information from the survivors, authorities began to track down the man as the girls, particularly Sherry, who had suffered the most from the attack, healed from their injuries. But even after looking into every lead that was at hand, the perpetrator was nowhere to be found. The three survivors and their families' tenacity kept the investigation open for decades, even after it had gone cold. Alongside law enforcement, Sherry, Kathy, and Candace followed leads and tips, searching for any indication that might lead them in the right direction. 2018 saw them start collaborating with retired police officer who agreed to investigate their case. His name was Sergeant David Ellison. Like many others at the time who were reinvestigating cold cases, his initial thought was to do another examination of the DNA that had been taken from the crime scene's evidence. Nowadays, thanks to the advancements in technology such as genetic genealogy, investigators can find relatives of the perpetrator by identifying comparable DNA profiles, in turn expanding their search and increasing their chances of success. By means of this family tree construction, they can track down a possible match for the DNA of the unidentified individual. In this instance, the crucial breakthrough for the case came from a woman who consented to providing a sample for additional testing. The DNA gave a match to her father, Thomas Edward Williams. In January 2024, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, IMPD, officially announced the resolution of the case. Through the use of forensic genetic genealogy, DNA Labs International, a private forensic DNA lab located in Deerfield Beach, Florida, was able to identify the attacker as Thomas Edward Williams. There's not much more information available on him, so it's impossible to determine why he did this, if he did have a reason at all. Needless to say, some detectives have noted that it appears as if he was looking for victims, particularly since his automobile was ready to lock anyone who stepped inside. This confirmatory identification may be useful in the search for connections in other unresolved crimes from the vicinity, such as the incident that was reported just before the girls were abducted. In that case, a woman was nearly ran off the road by an unidentified male, but she was able to escape. After learning the perpetrator's name, the victims have conveyed their relief, and Sherry has even said that she has forgiven Thomas for this dreadful crime. I'm very thankful to everyone for your help, but I also want to indicate that I do forgive this man. I had to in order to continue to live my life. So I hope that anybody who is in the situation can please do the same, Sherry said. Every day, Hiram Ross Grayam followed a simple routine. He'd hop into his milk truck, deliver fresh bottles to the residents of Vero Beach, and return home to his family. But one fateful evening, Ross didn't come back. His truck remained missing, and his loved ones were left in a state of growing dread. What happened to Ross on that routine delivery route? Hiram Grayam, often addressed as Ross, was 47 years old and living in Vero Beach, Florida, in April 1968. Ross served in World War II and was awarded the Purple Heart for his service, specifically for his participation in the Battle of the Bulge. He got married in 1968 and had 3 kids. He started working as a milkman for Borden Milk Company in Vero Beach. On April 11, 1968, Ross departed with his truck to complete his everyday milk deliveries. By the end of the day, he didn't bring the truck back to the depot, nor did he arrive home. In a state of worry, his family reported him missing to the authorities. Searches were carried out by the authorities the following day. Ross's milk truck was eventually spotted by a small plane flying over a forested area. The law enforcement officers responded to the location, and just beside the truck, they came across his lifeless body, lying. He had 3 gunshot wounds from a small caliber gun. Ross had no money in his wallet. He was reported to have been robbed of $70, which would be equivalent to around $630 in 2024. Ross was seen by a witness speaking with 2 black males who were strolling along the side of the road. Ross then stated that he will be coming back soon. The 2 men climbed into his truck and drove off. Living near the forested area, another witness reported hearing gunshots and seeing 2 black guys get into a late 1950s Cadillac. Detectives came up with a deduction that Ross was driven to the forested area by those 2 males, who then robbed him and took his life afterwards. Ross's passing left his family and the neighborhood in great mourning. He held leadership positions in the Civil Air Patrol and the Disabled American Veterans, both of which he actively participated in. In 1946, he relocated to Vero Beach with his family and became well known for his involvement in community activities. In the wake of the crime, no one was arrested. 3 years later, Ross's wife passed away, leaving their 3 teenage kids without a parent. As per Larry, their eldest child, their mother passed away from a heartbreak. Over the course of the following 6 years, 16 investigations into the case were conducted, but no one was ever arrested. It remained unsolved for decades. In 2006, Ross Grayam's family requested that the investigation be reopened, and the sheriff's office complied. An article regarding the case's reopening appeared in the Indian River Press Journal in October 2006. Interviews were conducted with Larry and Karen, 2 of Ross's children. They both said that they were devastated by the tragedy. In the article, the investigators said that they were looking into 2 people. Following the story's publication, an unusual letter was received by the newspaper editor. It came from a man by the name of Thomas J. Williams. He claimed in this letter that he had been accused of the slaying, however he wasn't involved in any way. Considering that Williams had never been an individual of interest in the case at any point, the letter seemed strange. He did have a criminal history, though. He became the subject of a police investigation after he sent the letter. Still, it yielded no new information. Thomas Williams passed away in 2016 from natural causes. Next, in February 2022, the sheriff's department was approached by an inmate. He claimed to be a friend of Williams's sister and stated that Williams had disclosed to him that he had shot Ross. Following up on this information, the authorities located Williams's ex-wife. She stated that Williams had confessed to her as well. Both witnesses' accounts seemed to be consistent with one another. Since the 2 witnesses were strangers to one another, the police took their statements seriously. Williams was the reason neither of them dared to speak up sooner. But now that he was gone, they felt more comfortable confessing. In April 2024, law enforcement officers announced that Thomas Williams was the gunman in the 56-year-old cold case of Ross Grayam. The investigation was not yet over, though. The robbery and slaying were committed by 2 men. The second individual is someone the police believe they know, but they can't seem to link him to the crime. In order to wrap up the case, the authorities are hoping that someone who knows the individual's involvement in the crime will eventually come forward. A man has been detained and accused in relation to a cold case, which dates back to over 2 decades after the police found the body of a law student from University of Georgia inside her residence, where they claim an intentional fire was started. One day before turning 24 on January 19, 2001, Athens Clark County firefighters discovered Tara Louise Baker's lifeless body within her house in Athens, Georgia. Born in East Point, On January 20th, 1977, Tara Louise Baker was renowned for her exceptional character as well as her academic successes. After graduating from Lovejoy High School in 1995, Baker continued her education at Georgia College, which is now Georgia College and State University, located in Milledgeville, from where she received 2 bachelor's degrees with honors from Georgia College in 1998. Friends and fellow students remembered Baker as a shining example of generosity and tolerance. From an early age, her dedication to social justice was apparent, as she constantly stood up for the underprivileged and frequently spearheaded initiatives to include every student in classroom activities. Her intellectual prowess was matched by her commitment to improving the educational experience for everyone around her. Baker was well known for her tendency to unite people, making sure that no devoted student was left out of study groups or class projects. On the morning of January 19, 2001, Athens Clarke County firefighters were dispatched to an apartment at 160 Fawn Drive in Athens, following reports of a fire. Upon arrival, they discovered Baker lying inside, deceased. Investigations determined that the fire was an act of arson, part of a calculated and horrendous crime that took the 23-year-old student's life. Baker was last seen by a friend about 7:30 p.m. at the library. At 9:46 p.m., Baker called that same friend to ensure that they had arrived home safely. She informed her friend that she would be leaving the library around 10 p.m. After that, she wasn't seen again. Strangulation, stab wounds to the neck, and blunt force trauma to the skull were declared as the causes of Baker's death. For 23 years, the homicide investigation into Baker's death remained unsolved. Ultimately, 48 years old, Edric Lamont Faust was taken into custody on Thursday, May 9, 2024, according to state and county authorities. He was charged with multiple felonies in relation to Baker's demise, which included felony murder, aggravated assault, arson, and aggravated sodomy. Records from the Clarke County Sheriff's Office show that Faust, an Athens resident, is still being held within a prison on a $150,000 bond. The arrest was made using DNA analysis and physical evidence. At a news conference earlier this month, Chris Hosey, the director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, stated that this breakthrough was the result of investigative work conducted by the cold case team and local investigators. Hosey, however, declined to disclose on how they came upon Faust. He added that no association has been found between the suspect and the victim. Speaking through tears while holding a large picture of her departed daughter behind her, Virginia Baker, the mother of the victim, thanked the authorities for carrying out the arrest. She said, "She's the mother of Tara. Tara's mother she is and always will be." Virginia thanked everybody for their prayers and encouraged other families whose loved ones had been taken to be hopeful. In September 2023, the Athens Clarke County Police Department and the GBI's cold case team collaborated to put together an in-depth review and evaluation of the ongoing investigation into Baker's slaying. Athens Clarke County Police Chief Jerry Salters, who was present at the crime scene in January 2001, is quoted in the press release as stating that he had been hoping for years that Baker's family were to get justice. He stated that he was really proud of all the cops who handled this case throughout the years, noting that the evidence gathered back then played a crucial role in the current arrest. If you find this video compelling, show your support by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and ringing that notification bell. By doing so, you'll stay updated about the latest investigations and mysteries. Your support means the world to us as we continue to pursue the truth in the world of cold cases.